Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Not morning, good afternoon. I'm happy that y'all are here today. I think we're in week 104, something like that. Pretty far in. It's been really good to see all of the conversations that we've been having every week. Today we have a really awesome group, and I'm really excited to have some good conversations. But before we get really going, I'm going to ask Theda to kick us off in a good way.
Thank you, Shailene. Hayos that's how you say God in Blackfoot, and Akpa is how you say God in Crow. No Gakimokit, no Gaspomokit, Spomokana, all of our life givers, Creator, Ayos Jabatapi, Spomokanam, Bethany Yellowtail, and all of her family, Spomokana, all the Crow clans, Spomokana, all of our sisters, and all of our husbands and boyfriends and men that really believe in nurturing and taking care of our life givers. Ayos Jabatapi, we're just trying to do our best today. If you could please just come down and let us speak from our hearts, and so that the next 10 generations of young girls and young men can grow up in harmony. Ayos Jabatapi, Spomokana, Sikai, Kaina, Butsapikani, Amskapi Pikani. Ayos Jabatapi, Spomokana, all the water spirits, the beaver, all the ceremonies that are coming out right now. Ayos Jabatapi, Spomokana, all the ceremonies, all of the sweats, all of the fasting, all of the new life and renewal celebrations from this equinox to the solstice on June 20th. Hi, Oninna. We just ask for some peacefulness and some joy to be brought to each person, that they forgive the unforgivable, that they let go, and that they realize it's their birthright to thrive and to have joy. We just ask that our sisterhood here of our life givers, that we're able just to share some uplifting words to all of our Power Hour audience and all of our Native Wellness Institute believers. Bottom line, that the teachings of our ancestors remain. So, hi, Ninna, no Gakimokit, no Gaspomokit. Anya, thank you, Shailene.
Awesome. Thank you, Theda. So I guess we'll just jump right into it. We'll do introductions, so you know a little bit of who we have here today, and I'll kick it off. Hello, everyone. My name is Shailene Joseph. I work for the Native Wellness Institute, as well as one of the, people with the Indigenous 20-somethings project. Really excited to be here and talk about a really awesome collaboration that we have going. And I'll kick it over to Sib.
Hello, everybody. It's Siera Amaya, Yanishia, Tapahanishla, Sinjakina Bushishchin, Bilaganishiche, Sitnajani Chanela, Sehotso de Nasha, Shema Lena Adams, Shaje Brandon Gay, hello, everybody. My name is Siera Amaya. I am Navajo. I'm coming to you from the O'odham territories down here in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm married. I have a almost gonna be 2-year-old, and her name is Hosea, and husband is Tomas. I'm super excited to be joining these amazing women that I look up to today, and I can't wait for you to hear what our topic is about and the work that is being done. And yeah, nice to meet you all on this beautiful day. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I'm excited to share space with you all. And I'll kick it off to Zarina.
Hi, everybody. My name is Zarina Guerrero. I am the marketing manager for Be Yellowtail. We are here on Tongva territory in Los Angeles, where we have our beautiful studio, warehouse, office space. And I'm so excited to share more about the work that Be Yellowtail is doing with the Native Wellness Institute and our Res Girl Mentorship Fund. So Theda, I'll hand it off to you to finish us out.
So Oki Nistu Nidanico Mokoyo Sokoi. It's my second Blackfoot name. I've just been caring for 4 years, and I had Okstukama was my first name. And when we have our a new Indian name, we're like a baby growing into it. So it might sound funny. I'm just finding out who I am. I mean, my elders keep telling me you're a baby, you're growing into your new name, and I'm 66 years old. I'm like, okay, I'm a baby. But I live on the Blackfeet Reservation, Lower St. Mary's, below Ninastico Chief Mountain. I love this area all the way down to the Crow Nation. We have Mokakakin, which means the backbone of the world, the Rocky Mountains. So I live right at the top of near Chief Mountain, and the Crows live kind of down. They have River Crow and and Mountain Crow. I am part of the Native Wellness Institute team. We've been going 22 years with Shailene Joseph as our executive director. We have a big giant team, and next week we're meeting with 300 of our Harmony ally organizations. So please come join us. So what's next, Shailene? You're guiding us.
Yeah, buckle up. Yes. Geez, I just blew past my own introduction. On my mom's side, I'm Ani from Fort Belknap, Montana, and on my dad's side, Koyukon Athabaskan from Tanana, Alaska, and here in Chinook territory, so just kind of outside of Portland, is where I'm at. Anyhow, now that you know. So cool. I think a lot of this is going to be about the collaboration that we're having with Be Yellowtail. And the awesome magic that is coming from that. But I'll pass it over to Zarina to kind of give us an overview or a history and the vision of the collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Zarina. I am the marketing manager here at Be Yellowtail. Bethany, our founder and CEO, was supposed to join you all today, but unfortunately she was under the weather, so I'm stepping in her place. So I will do my best to speak about this beautiful campaign that we have launched in collaboration with NWI. So Bethany really has this great vision in terms of what she believes Be Yellowtail is, what we can do, and how firm we should stand in our beliefs and in our messaging. And she started playing with this idea of res girls can do anything. And that really grew from a place of growing up not seeing a lot of res girl role models in the media. But when we look at our own lives and we look at the women that we're surrounded with, we have so many beautiful, positive, empowering role models within our families, within our communities, our aunties, our friends. And we really wanted to speak to that messaging and to say that, and here we are in 2022, and all of us are surrounded by such incredible women, and a lot of our women's come from the res, and nobody is really talking about those women and empowering those women. And we wanted to put those women at the center of our storytelling and at the center of who we are, and be a point of pride and showcase women who are excelling in their careers and excelling in the workforce and excelling in their communities, to not only inspire us and show who we're inspired by, but also give inspiration to the next generation of young women who are coming up. So really this message was born from a place of wanting to uplift and empower and celebrate women, all women, but specifically res girls, because we don't often see them centered in this way. And then as we were building out this campaign and talking about the messaging and what we were going to do, we know that it had to be more than a t-shirt. It had to be more than just a design. It had to have something meaningful that was going to make an impact. And we started talking about what are different options we could do. Could we do a scholarship fund? Could we, donate to an organization? What could it look like? And I'm sure Theda and Shailene will share a little bit, but in early 2020, after the discovery of Siera Stops Pretty Places, who was one of the murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls that was found in Bethany's home community in the Crow Nation. NWI and Bethany and Theda and some other community leaders put on a very, very beautiful, impactful community workshop with the intention of that workshop being something that would be ongoing in order to provide healing and empowering the community. Unfortunately, the pandemic hit, and as we all know, life changed significantly. So there wasn't the ability to go back and do that type of workshop in that time period, as we were all virtual and trying to figure out how to navigate this new space. So we really thought that that was the opportunity that, you know, we could give a scholarship to go to a university, but we know that those are Western institutions. We know that those institutions don't always serve our communities well, and that it might not have the wide-reaching impact that we wanted to have with this campaign. So then we thought about how NWI does community gatherings and community wellness workshops, and we really saw that as a space to not only empower and like provide leadership training for young girls, but could also be a pathway towards prevention for the MMIW, MMIR epidemic. You know, teaching young girls about, and young, you know, boys about healthy relationships, about community empowerment, about leadership can provide resources and love and strength to help, you know, kind of provide alternatives for young people, and could hopefully, you know, help us find community solutions that can address this epidemic that we're seeing in our communities. So that's what really drove us to create this campaign, and to create what is now known as the Res Girls Mentorship Fund. So we reached out to the Native Wellness Institute, Shailene and Shalene. We started brainstorming about what it could look like. So now where we're at is we have this beautiful tee that you see on Theda. Our Res Girls Can Do Anything tee. We have stickers, we have pins, and proceeds from these products are going to benefit our Res Girls Mentorship Fund in collaboration with Native Wellness Institute. And NWI is going to be able to take these funds to do community workshops in various communities to provide this type of leadership training, healthy relationships, community gathering programming that they do so well. And we hope that we're really going to make an impact for young girls and young women and young boys as well, because as we all know, when you empower young women, you empower entire communities. So we really see this as, you know, centering young girls, but being about young men and empowering young men as well, and showing them that through our women, through healing and empowering our women, our entire communities are healed and empowered as well. Yeah, so Shailene, I don't know if you have anything else you'd like to add to that.
Yeah, got me all hype over here like I haven't heard. Yeah, no, I think, you know, one of the things that I love most about this campaign is that it's been community led, and it's something that really came from, you know, our hearts and the want for you know, the betterment of our communities. And so you know, watching everybody really come together, it was really smooth in the launch. It was like, okay, this is the idea, and we're like, yeah, cool, all right, let's put this out. And it was, you know, instantly you know, it's success, and success is watching our communities thrive. And so I think that was the beautiful part. And I don't know if anybody else, if Siera or Theda want to add anything to that, but I think, you know, one of the things that continues to inspire me is, you know, it's for community by community, and it's going to make a lot of impact because the work has already started. And, you know, many of us have, you know, been mentored, you know, by a lot of people like Theda to do this work, and to carry on those legacies and to pick up where a lot of people have left off. So Sierra, I don't know if you want to add anything before Theda kind of jumps in, and we'll keep the conversation going.
Yes, absolutely. I think that having these conversations on and putting them in these different spaces is so needed. And I just want to thank the Zarina and the Be Yellowtail team for continuously working with and for community in the work and the give back that they do. And I'm at the beginning of the pandemic, an amazing holding space and supporting one another had happened. And I want to ask Theda if she can share of how we came into community and stood by the Be Yellowtail team and the Crow Nation. If you could share that with us.
No, thank you, Sarah. I'm just looking at all three of you, and I'm just so dang proud of you. Because in the kinship way, you know, we have our blood relatives, and these are all my nieces, and Bethany, and the Absalaga, the Crow way is my blood, my niece. But Sierra and you know, and Shailene and Zarina, you were just like putting it out there. I was just like, yeah, you know, so I'm like your cheerleader. But in 2020, that was a miraculous gathering. And a lot of it had to do with Bethany's own knowledge of her people. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it had to do with knocking on doors. We call it like grassroots moccasins on the ground. We were able to get over 100 advocates at the multi-purpose building and bring them because Bethany's like she's like an uplifting prime example of when you allow your young women to thrive. I mean, you know, I could just, you know, like she's a little girl was probably just coloring some outfits. She was like a little girl, like, you know, playing with her paper dolls. And then now she's designing clothes all over the world in Paris. You know, so she's like, I don't know, all the res girls, because we like have 11 nations, 8 reservations in Montana. And they just they all want to become like her. You know, and coming from humble means, you know, because a lot of our reservations here, we're 1.5 million acres here. Crow's over 1 million acres. Northern Cheyenne, you know, Rocky Boy, Salish Kootenai, Fort Peck, Fort Belknap. You know, there's just these res girls. And Bethany Yellowtail, well, so she was able to bring together, along with Shailene and our indigenous 20-something, we had a whole day of just healing. You know, Selena, Not Afraid, was still missing at that time. And then there's thousands of missing and murdered. Sovereign Bodies Institute has that database that you can get. And just this week, there was memorial walks in Billings, you know. And so, but Bethany brought together, it was kind of interesting because it was like that young sports team. I mean, because like we're a basketball, we live for res ball, but they brought like Josh Stewart and all of the girls and the boys team. They brought all the coaches, they brought all the schools, they brought tribal health, they brought Ada bands, they brought all of the entities, plus they brought the ceremonial people. There was just really good Crow people, you know, they're humble. I don't even think they're on Facebook, let alone Instagram or TikTok. But they all came and they prayed over people. There was a lot of tears. And then there was, we had laughing games. It was just trust building, but it was, and you know, what we wanted to do, allying with NWI, is just have more of those. And Indigenous 20-something was just going to go along. And then the pandemic hit. But now, you guys, the pandemic is coming to a place where the moccasins got to hit the ground again. And that's what today's Power Hour is about. And we're highlighting what Bethany is, just one of those trailblazers, along with Shailene, along with Siera, along with your whole staff, Zarina. You know, it's like we're at a place where we just want to like build the framework, with you on this power hour. So what else you want to ask us, Shailene?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, every time I think about it, I get all fired up again. Um, when we first heard, about Selena, it was devastating to Indian country, and everybody was really, feeling it. And Beth and I were texting back and forth, and trying to process ourselves, and I a lot processed through art. And so I had drew up this image, and I didn't want to share it with anybody but Beth, and so I shared it, and we were talking about what can we do, what are the things that we can do. And that's as easy as it was. And it started very simply, and we asked my mom, who's the executive director of NWI, what can we do? And we just started reaching out, and our plan was, let's go over, we'll find the funding so Crow doesn't have to pay for anything, and we'll figure it out. And so Beth got to work, I got to work, my mom got to work, we called Theda, and we were like, this is the plan. And it really came together. And I remember it happened so fast. N7 had a some kind of event or something, and we went shopping afterwards, and pre-pandemic days, and we were like shopping, and my cart hit somebody else's cart, and I was like, oh dang. And it was a friend of mine who works for CNAY, and I was like, oh dang, how are you? And mind you, we had just made this plan the day before, okay, to go to Crow. And I was like, oh, I'm doing all right, a lot of emotions. I was like, but we're getting ready to head to Crow, and we're just trying to find the funding and stuff to make it all happen. And like in the second, she's like, oh wait, she's like, somebody from Crow just reached out to me, and we're helping fund it. And I was like, wait, what? And that's kind of how it continued to go. And everything was coming into place very easily. And my youngest brother, Shailene Joseph, and our best friend, Josh Cocker, they went out hunting and got 2 deer to make sure that, the whole community was fed. And, everybody was donating door prizes, and, really on the ground, right? Like really making this a success from all angles. People in the community were doing the cooking, and it was really beautiful that even in the really hard times that abundance showed up, and everybody showed up with their abundance. And it was really like community, like everybody knew that they had something that they could offer, and they did, to make it happen. And so that's what makes me even more excited about the collaboration, is that these events will happen more often. And yes, we're in a pandemic, and it slowed a lot of the work down, but there's still things that we can do. And now that we're kind of opening up a little, while also remaining to keep our community safe, there's still work to be done. And it just makes me really excited to do the work. I don't know if Ciera, you want to add to any of that, or
yeah. I think, well, for my journey and my experience working with the Native Wellness Institute, I started going to youth events when I was a teenager, and now going into my adulthood and being a part of the Indigenous 20-somethings project, and continuously giving back to community. Because when I was a teenager, like many of us, we've gone through traumas, and for me, I just needed a bit more help of getting out of those dark times. And so I'm so thankful for the Native Wellness Institute and all of the mentors there who have helped me. And I know that the feelings and emotions that I have, and the thankfulness many people have in our communities for this healing work. And like there's a quote that Shalene says, that has stuck with me and is really just ringing in my head right now as we have these conversations is, you know, where there is trauma, healing is the answer. And so alongside with the trauma that we go through, there's healing and there's continuous hope for the next generation. And sorry, for all of our little res girls to come. And so on the website, I pulled it up, and one of, I just want to read it really quick. So right here, it says from the BALTEL website, we believe a powerful way to support people is through community-based solutions that are centered in cultural values like love, care, honor, and respect. And to remind our res girls young, our res girls old, of these things that we deserve, that is so powerful and so necessary in these times now, in these times, praying for our ancestors, for that, for them, and for our res girls as well. And yeah, this work is just, it's just so necessary for our res girls and for our gender nonconforming relatives, you know, who we want to celebrate and acknowledge during this month of Women's Awareness Month. And yes, my feelings and emotions got to me a little bit, but I'm just so proud of you all, young and old, of the work that continues to happen and that needs to happen. And thank you to everybody who is commenting in the commenting section and being with us and supporting us and being a part of community and being a part of this power hour and being a part of this healing that is happening is so appreciated. Woo.
I want to say, Sierra, that like this campaign really like blew us away and like has been something that we could never have dreamed of. The day that we launched on March 8th on International Women's Day, and at the end of the day, Bethany and I sat on the couch just like in joyous, happy tears, like just exactly like the emotion that you're expressing. Like I think we knew it was gonna resonate with people because it resonated with us and we felt it, but to see just how deeply it resonated with others, and we have gotten so many messages of women saying how this has changed their perspective on what it means to be a res girl. Like, whoa, that to me was like the biggest compliment we could ever receive. People saying, you know, that they had people in their lives calling them res girls in a derogatory way, and that for us to change the narrative and to make res girls be about strength and love and empowerment and respect and possibility and potential and opportunity, which it is, you know. And just to see the reaction from the community has been so overwhelming and so joyous, because words mean so much. And oftentimes, you know, people are able to say things to us that make us feel less than, or make us feel not worthy, or we feel imposter syndrome, or we feel stuck, or we don't see, you know, the ways out of you know, historically marginalized communities, right? And so I think that has been, to me, the most like profound and like the best part of this is like, yeah, we're selling t-shirts, but what do those t-shirts mean for the women who are wearing them? You know, like what does it mean for the young girls who are seeing their aunties and their cousins and their sisters wearing this shirt? You know, and one thing that was important to us was to highlight res girls that are in a variety of different professions and backgrounds. You know, we had Dr. Desi Small Rodriguez, who is a data warrior. She's a professor at UCLA. Like, what? We had Jolie Valera, who founded Indigenous Women Hike and is a body positive advocate. We had Tasba Chavez, who's a writer, a director, a poet, like breaking barriers, you know? So I think that, you know, we've been able to, and like, these are women we know in our community that we love, and like, just to be able to share so many different stories of success, so many different possibilities, girls who live on the res, girls who like moved to pursue their careers. You know, we had Tia Wood, who is now like a huge star and is only getting bigger and is really breaking into that mainstream social media kind of like fame. I think is really cool. So like, I so appreciate like seeing like your emotional response, because like that has been us this whole month, just like being like, wow, like I said, we knew that it was meaningful. We took so much care to be intentional about what we were saying, and to see the way it resonated, and to see the way that it really struck a chord with our communities was just so beautiful. And we're really, really grateful for that. Like, I don't want to like downplay or minimize that at all. Like, it is so incredible to us to see how this message, this, like I said, like this thing that is really like a t-shirt or a sticker or a pin, has so much more meaning, because we are choosing to use words that are empowering, and we are choosing to partner with a community-based organization that is a leader in this space, that knows how to build community and to build leaders. And it's just been beyond our wildest expectations. And for those who are joining us today, like, I hope that the message resonated with you, and I hope that it made you feel empowered, because res girls can do anything, period.
And that, you know, that's Zarina. I'm just like, we're going, yay. And thank you, Siera, because, you know, the emotion behind all of our life givers right now on the res and off the res too, because, you know, half of our people do, for reasons, had mainly just to have an income, have gone off res. But now we're the resiliency, I just want to highlight all of our tribal colleges. You know, I just, you know, that all of the 38 tribal colleges are doing fantastic stuff. They hit the ground running, you know, and I know as once we wear the shirt around here with the thousands of people at our gatherings, they went virtual, you know, and just, you know, NWI's Power Hour is always about inspiration. So we just wanted to come today. So maybe since we're all from different age categories, because it's really important in kinship, you know, because like, you know, I'm 66, but my elders still call me girls, you know, because Narcissus Blood told us, and this was something he just said before he left. He said, I don't know how to prove this, but he said, I've been noticing that people that can't, that haven't done their healing, they can't hear the language. And so he was talking to Dr. Deb Pace and I, and he said, so you girls step it up on the healing, because after you heal more, you begin to speak the language more. And the language and the kinship is just so tightly tied to any kind of reclaiming or resiliency. I mean, Yellowtail knows that, Indigenous 20-something knows that, but our audience just look at the things now. You know, we're just inviting you. This is, you know, get the t-shirts, take a selfie, get Zarina, you can outline what we'd like them to do in the campaign, but I'll speak from a grandmother's point of view. I was thinking, we just had a whole bunch of babies, like one born this morning, you know, like, and it's like a weird statistic. Yes, we did lose some elders, but for every elder we lost, we had 8 babies. So it must have been really good romancing time during the pandemic. But I just want to say, but then one of my little nieces said to me, she said, yeah, did you notice all the babies are Blackfeet mom, Blackfeet dad? They're all enrolled. And I was just thinking, because res girls are usually enrolled. But that also means, and I want to say this very loudly, we have to not define ourselves by any of our colonizer or oppressors. Because we just found out we have 20,000 descendants with a quarter blood or less, and they're still us. I mean, I have little nieces, I have little relatives. We call them the three redheads. They don't know anything. They speak our language. They haven't lived out there. And yes, they have red hair. They don't see themselves as anything but Blackfeet. And they're a res girl. And they can do, one is a boxer, one is a ballerina. I mean, and I look at them, one's riding a horse. I swear she's going to be Indian relay. And they just see themselves as res girls. And so, but from the grandma point of view, I get excited, and I really would just like encourage you, all you grandmas, don't wait for your kids to come to you. Go with them. Go with them. And when you're riding in the car, when you're sitting in the grandstands, when you're at the powwow, because all the Kyayo's coming up here, is share the stories, because they might have all the Netflix stories, but start talking about, the Napi stories, the coyote stories, the rabbit stories, the Natusi, the moon, the sun, the cosmic, the seven brothers, the seven sisters, the creation stories. So to the grandmas, the reason res girls can do anything because they know who they are. They know their creation story. They know their language. They go to the ceremonies. They know how to make the berry soup. They know how to get prepared, how everything to be prepared. And here are women, they take care of the lodges, which is the teepee. They take care of the bundles. So with the grandmas, I know that there's been outside influence. So this is a serious thing that you need to ask yourself. And uplifting res girls of all ages, is you have to decide, do you want your grandchildren, the next 10 generations, do you want them to be Indian, or do you want them to be melted into America? So I'm asking you just to do your best in a gentle way, in a compassionate way, and in a loving way. Share the stories, and we're only as sick as our secrets. Share the stories and how you got through it. Share I look at, because one of the things, and we're re-socializing. So we're even re-socializing on social media. And when you hear the hurtful stories, are the humorous stories, there's humorous stories, with our res, because our res girls are like, okay, we don't want to slap you like we're gonna, but I want to talk about that. So from a grandma point of view, that is called a spiritual awakening, or you get a spiritual, when tough stuff happens, when it's happening to you, the spirits are trying to wake you up and get you back into harmony. So when things don't go well, you are getting a slap. It may not be a Will Smith slap, but creator slapping you. And they're asking you, when you get the slap, because like, shoot, when you get that, and I can only speak from my experience, that the day that I decided to not use drugs or alcohol, the days that I decided to leave a partner that wasn't healthy, the days that I decided never to use cuss words, to anything toxic to enter into, you can't help some things, but to really to live, to let our words be golden, in that they're well thought out, they're well prayed out, they're reflective, and that so I try, and this is just in, grandma's head, is what I'm saying encouraging? Is what I'm saying uplifting? Is what I'm saying boosting that person? So all you grandmas, all you res grandmas, use your words, because you're powerful. you are so powerful. You're like, the grandmas are the rock of the family, you know, and just so use some of that power and the love and just teaching people to say, I love you, teaching people to say, I'm sorry, teaching people to say, help me, you know, don't stand alone. So that's some of my thoughts. So what do you girls think?
So many things. No, I think it's awesome. I think, you know, one of the things I was thinking about while you were talking is when we were up in Crow, it was Josh and I and a few others. We did work. Well, we did the community work and watching everybody intergenerationally work together. And a lot of it, you know, was through, you know, doing different exercises. But when we played games together, like you watched everyone's inner child came out, like no matter the age. Oh, Beth will have to tell me who it was, but there was this one of these elders, we were playing this game where you have to say, I love my native who, and then you get to pick. And your whole goal is to get as many people out of their chairs, and they have to run to a different chair across the room. And so I was like, you know, be careful though, because there was a lot of us in the room. And so we were kind of sitting in our chairs and I was getting real nervous. And so they were like, you know, I love my native who brushed their teeth this morning. And like, you know, I feel like some people lied, but you know, everybody got up and ran. And Margot Realbird, so Margot Realbird, she's sitting in her chair, right? And she gets up and she starts running and everyone's kind of in their seats. And I think it was Beth's mom. There was like one chair left. And you know, they're both kind of like shuffling over because we said, you know, try not to run. And Beth's mom sits down and Margot didn't want to be the last one, so she sat on her lap. And we were all laughing. We were like, yeah. But it was in that moment, in that very exact moment, it sticks in my head very distinctively. And those who know me, I have a very you know, things slip away really quick. And so, but it was that moment where I was like, man, like all of this work is already a success, right? Like that moment right there, I was like, we as in like everybody who showed up, you know, really did the work to make this happen. And, you know, it's the simplicity of stuff like that, you know, makes me feel really good about, you know, the choices that we make, right? And we have a lot of say in the life that we live. And it could be the small choices or the big choices. And you know, with after that, you know, Josh and I had gone to, I don't even know how many schools. Sometimes I think we did like 3 in a day, working with kids and, you know, telling them why we were there and that we were there to support them. And then we played games like for, you know, a straight hour, and kids can outrun me any day, but we were like really trying to keep up, and we were like huffing and puffing, but you know, really making the most of it because, you know, to show them that, you know, these kids are, one, that they matter, and 2, that we see them, and we wanted to not only, you know, be there to, you know, acknowledge everything that was happening, but show them some support and show them some love. And we were playing like wild games with like the entire high school in the gymnasium. And you know, maybe we'll try and post some videos of that, because like it's probably why I'm losing my hearing. The like laughter and the yelling of like everyone supporting one another was really amazing. And I think you know, when it comes to, you know, this campaign and this work, that's really, you know, it's not really like work. It's like you know, it's a way of being, you know, supporting. And I think, you know, when things are meant to be, they happen easily. And I think, you know, this work, regardless, is going to happen. And, you know, I think it's a beautiful thing. And another thing I wanted to mention, in the various places I've lived in my life, for whatever reason, like one of my closest friends, is always a crow, and I don't know why it happens that way, but it does. And Beth, when I was living in LA, was like, my floaty, and she really got me through a lot of things. And while we were planning this together, this is the second thing that really sticks in my head. And we were sitting there eating breakfast. This is the day of the event. A lot is going on. We're setting up, tables and chairs and, getting prizes together. Everyone's nervous because people were trickling in slowly. And we were like, okay, it's going to work out. It's going to work out. Everything is going to be great. And, as people are coming in, we're eating breakfast. And thanks, B. Dale Oldhorn, we're sitting there, and he's just visiting with us. And I think Theda was at the table too. And so we're sitting there, and he looks at me and he's like, you're Bethany's friend? And I was like, yeah. And then he's like, what's your name? And I tell him, and then he's like, you're the little Aani girl. And I was like, yeah, that's me. And I was like, why I gotta be little? And then so we're like kind of cracking jokes. But one of the things that I'll never forget and really, solidifies the work for me as an individual is that he talked about the relationship of Beth and I was built in the stars. And I was like, holy man, like we're getting deep here. And I was like, okay. And then he was like, well, let me tell you why. And he talked about how a long time ago, the crow, I'll be quick with it because, we're running out of time, but the crow needed help. And so my people on my mom's side, the Aani people, came down and gifted these old ways to them. And so, the horse dances and the war bonnet dance to bring healing to their community. And he talked about how many generations ago it was, and that it was happening again, that this relationship that was built in the stars will continue forward, and that the work, no matter what it is, will always be done in a good way because of that. And I was just sitting there just trying to eat my pancakes, and I was just like, oh my God, like mind blown and crying, but also just like really thankful because, without putting it in so many words, that's how, I feel about Beth and how incredible she is and the work that she does. And, I know she's not feeling well today. And so, we love you, Beth. And, but, with that being said, I think one thing, since we only have 10 minutes, is we can kind of get into, our own final words and what advice do we have, or, inspirations for others. But Beth sent me one from hers, so I'm gonna read hers, and hope I don't mess up any of her words. So anyways, so this is from Bethany Yellowtail. She said, thank you, NWI, for cultivating a space where our gifts and creativity can merge to help the love of our people. I'm also looking forward to continuing this work with you all. I love Res Girls with all my heart, and all my intention and wish for this campaign and collaboration is to uplift our people. So that, yeah, so that comes from Beth. And I think for me, my final words are, wherever you may be located, or, where you are in your connecting to community, is to know that you are worthy of good things. I know the last few years have been, excuse me, kind of rough for some people, and just know that, we here at NWI and Be Yellowtail, we're praying for you, and we're keeping you in our hearts, and we do this work for you. And I hope that you join us in making our communities the places of abundance that we know that they are. And we have so much love for you. And before my voice gets any shakier, I'm gonna pass it over to Siera.
Okay. Thank you, Shailene, for that story and the healing that it's brought to us and also to the community and to the people that are listening. I just want to thank NWI for having me on, and I also want to thank Zarina and the Be Yellowtail team and Bethany for doing the work. Healing comes in all forms, shapes, and sizes. And so the healing that we do in NWI and the healing that you all do with Be Yellowtail is awesome and amazing. And being Res Girl over here, seeing your guys' brand and company and all of the success is amazing. And I just want to send you guys all of my love. And with us running out of time, I'm gonna, I mentioned the website earlier. And so I'm gonna put that into the comment section right now for you all to check out and get it as a gift. There's a few holidays coming up. There's Mother's Day is coming up, and also, well, a couple months from now, but like our summer solstice is coming up, and so I just put that into the comment section right now. So you can check that all out. And yeah, thank you again, everybody. You all inspire me so much and are my role models. And yeah, and I'll pass it over to Zarina.
Thank you, NWI, for having us on. We are so proud to collaborate with you, and we're so looking forward to where this will go. For those watching, this campaign is ongoing. Women's History Month ends tomorrow, but we are going to be celebrating Res Girls in forever. This is not something that's going away. We're going to continue to work with NWI. We're going to be looking forward to, sharing out reports and updates on how the fund is going. So please keep in touch with both of us. I wanted to mention, we're speaking a lot about healing, and I think sometimes when we hear that, it can seem daunting and it can seem overwhelming and it can seem very hard. And sometimes it is, but healing is also laughter and finding joy and being in community and sharing stories. And I think that is, one thing, what we did today and what NWI does in their work, and hearing of all these joyful moments and how we're reconnecting and finding kinship with each other, that's all healing work. And I think it's so beautiful and so empowering and impactful, and I'm really looking forward to what's next and joining you all soon.
You guys are all so beautiful. I just thank you, Shailene, and thank you, Siera, and thank you, Zarina. I was just, thinking about us as we're not only life givers to making children, but we're life givers to ideas. We're life givers to running for president. We have a vice president. That's his. I mean, I've just talked, she's not a res girl, but she probably could be. We should adopt Kamala and give her a Crow name and a Blackfeet name and a Navajo name and an Ani name. Because if something happens to Biden, woohoo, she's president. No. But I just wanted to, just really realize we're in a new day and age. And I was just, I heard something that I think is just profound. It was like an NPR. They were looking at girls 30 years and under, that they don't have the disparities that other women have in wages. And I think that we're at a tsunami of transformation even after this pandemic. We've learned to grieve better. We've learned to celebrate better, and we've learned forgiveness. I think everybody is not holding on to petty grudges. I think people aren't holding on to petty things, and they're really wanting new experiences. And so, you know, from NWI, we're going to create along with Bethany, and Bethany with, you know, just, I think that's her creativity. And you're right, Shailene, it's almost like, you know, when you let the stars of the Gakadoksi go on, that's the star people. When you let them, when you sleep good and you dream good, Bethany's, you know, like even I think of some of her, because she always sends me stuff and I'm, you know, wear it. Look at this, Bethany. And I'm like, you know, walking Bethany, but I always feel like the clothing, I feel like they have an energy that comes from the stars. I feel like they have an energy, and you know, even it, yes, it is the t-shirt, yes, there are stickers, but it has an energy of, it's like a force. It's like a force where, and I just want to say this, you know, our grandmas, we were always taught to adorn ourselves. Even when you're not feeling good, you should adorn. That's why your hair should be braided, your hair should be fixed, you should have clothes on. And I was, you know, my grandmothers would get after me, never look shabby in public, because you're the ambassador for your kinship and all your family. And so if, you know, what better reason to all wear Bethany, because we have to adorn ourselves. You know, we have to, you know, I was just seeing how greasy I was, but Siera, you'll have to show me how to do some foundational stuff, because I was just thinking, greasy Indians, but oil of Olay, we don't get wrinkles. Anyway, just my final words is, like Bethany, adorn yourself. You're every day when you put on your dance outfit, like, you know, like this crow dress behind me, you're it's a vow to Istabatapi and Akpadadia, to creator. You dress up for creator and you dress up for yourself. You should make yourself feel good. And so that's some of my final thoughts. With that, I'll shift it to Shailene. What else do you want to say before we sign off, Shailene?
Yeah, I think that's everything. Big shout out to Be Yellowtail for all of you guys and your team. Thank you guys so much for your work, and also including us and letting us be a part. Thank you to you three for, you know, being on today. And I know this uplifted myself and I needed this today. So I appreciate you all. Everyone who came to join us today, thank you for hanging on and being a part with us along the way. And we'll see you guys next Wednesday.
Awesome.